I want to bring in Massachusetts Democratic Senator Ed Markey, who serves on the Foreign Relations Committee. Good to see you, Senator. Good morning.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, I guess. I want to start with a statement from Senator John McCain. A pervasive concern among the rest of your colleagues, as well as I understand, with the news of this intelligence agency review, that in fact they don't know who's in charge. I wonder how you look at the national security apparatus as it stands right now under this White House, and whether you think this intelligence review could be a good idea.
Well, right now, let's be honest, the national security apparatus in our country is in chaos. It's in disarray. We don't have the president praising the national intelligence community for finding that there could have been a compromise of our election, potentially a compromise of the sanctions, which President Obama announced that he was going to impose upon Russia. Instead, President Trump is mad at the information being put out into the public domain so that we can all know about it. And now what he's doing is naming another Wall Streeter to go in like a corporate takeover of the intelligence community, clearly with the intent of creating a chilling effect upon these intelligence professionals who are trying to help America to understand how our security may have been compromised in our relationship with Russia.
In the meantime, we have what looks to be, within the next couple of minutes perhaps, Alexander Acosta, the dean of the FIU Law School, who is going to take over as the Labor Secretary nominee. Do you know him? Had there been any buzz about him? It happened so quickly after Puzder was gone.
I don't know anything about him any more than I knew anything about Puzder. But the more we learned about Puzder is the more we understood that he had an anti-worker, anti-labor agenda. And so the president has a right to propose, but we have a right to dispose. The United States Senate in these confirmation hearings. So we're going to give him the closest possible examination that the Senate can provide, because every worker in America is dependent upon having a labor secretary who is their advocate and not just another corporate representative in the Trump administration.
And if I can, Senator, I want to ask you about a George Will column today. He talked about ways that in Congress that prevent a trade war initiated by the White House. Do you think, as this presidency continues, there's going to be any kind of growing bipartisan push to take power away from President Trump?
Well, President Trump's power is limited. He is just, unfortunately, not yet as familiar with the United States Constitution as he should be. The Congress has to determine whether or not there is a funding for a wall on our southern border. The Congress has to determine whether or not a treaty is ratified. The Senate has to determine whether or not we, in fact, change fundamentally our relationships with these countries around the world. I don't think he fully grasped yet the role that the other branches play, and as a result, I think that increasingly we are going to have to play an even greater role in ensuring that he does not act arbitrarily in a way that actually hurts our trade relations, puts a chilling effect upon it, without actually being able to change the law. Anyway, he cannot unilaterally put a tariff on the books. He cannot unilaterally just walk away from many of the commitments that we've already made. And that's going to be the Senate's job, to make sure that we police that area. And I agree with Judge Will that that is a central responsibility in this Trump era.
So you've mentioned a couple of times about your job and your responsibility over the course of just this short interview. And one of the concerns I have heard from other Democrats, Senator, is that they feel that they need to focus, that there are so many things going on, that they have to make sure that they have a plan going forward, that they choose well where they're going to put their time and effort and energy, because you can't go after every shiny new object, every new tweet that goes out there. Do you feel you have a plan? How is this working now on the Democratic side of the Senate, and how is it different than what you're used to in your experience there?
Well, we're in unprecedented territory. Yes, at the top of the list, without question, is whether or not the Russians hacked into and interfered with our elections, whether or not there was a compromise on the day that Obama was imposing sanctions on Russia with the promise that they would be undermined once Donald Trump was, in fact, sworn into office. That's at the top of the list. But these other issues are very important. If the Secretary of Health and Human Services Price is committed to undermining Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and the Affordable Care Act, that's a big fight. If Scott Pruitt, the Attorney General from Oklahoma, who has sued the EPA 19 times, is actually confirmed as the head of the EPA, that puts clean air, clean water, mercury, smog, haze, all these issues into place that go right to the well-being of every family in America. We could go down the litany of issues. We wish that we could triage them, but unfortunately, he is making a wholesale assault on 2 generations that have had a consensus in our country, and so we don't have a choice. We have to raise our energy level. We have to fight every one of these issues as hard as we can because the public out there expects us to. The fact that he's flooding us with all these issues does not in any way reduce our responsibility to ensure that every day on every issue we are there fighting to make sure that the public understands the implication of the repeal of laws that go right to the heart of the security, the safety, the health of every family in America.
Senator Markey, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.